Welcome to today's story. Let us know which city you're watching from in the comments below. Thomas Whitmore is the embodiment of success in his era. As the founder and chairman of Whitmore Enterprises, he built a business empire worth billions and became a symbol of hard work, determination, and vision. Yet in recent years, Thomas realized that money couldn't buy the most important thing: genuine connection with the people he loved. In his luxurious penthouse where every detail exuded opulence, Thomas stood by the window, his weary eyes gazing at the sparkling city lights below. His heart felt heavy. His closest friends had passed away. His wife had died young after a short but happy marriage, and his grandson, Julian, the family's sole hope, seemed more distant than ever. Like Thomas, Julian had been swept into the relentless grind of work and success, leaving behind the simple emotions of life. One morning, breaking away from his reclusive habits, Thomas decided to step out of his penthouse for a walk. He wandered into a nearby supermarket, a place he rarely visited. Among the bustling crowd, he noticed a vibrant corner with a colorful booth displaying an array of fruit juices. There stood Mia, a young woman with neatly tied hair and a radiant smile, drawing everyone's attention with her lively energy. "Ma'am, health or flavor? Which would you choose?" Mia asked, waving at a woman who was about to walk past the booth. "I'm in a hurry," the woman replied curtly. "Perfect. This drink is as quick as you are. Just one sip, and you'll taste both health and flavor." Mia beamed as she handed the woman a sample. Surprised, the woman stopped, took a sip, and laughed. Within minutes, Mia had convinced a seemingly uninterested customer to buy 2 boxes of juice. Thomas observed from a distance, unable to look away. It wasn't the products Mia was selling that fascinated him, but her confidence, humor, and the way she found joy in the simplest of things. It was something he no longer saw in his own life, a genuine happiness unclouded by calculations. Pushing his cart closer, he spoke up. "Do you think you can convince anyone?" Mia turned around, her eyes bright. "I've made even people who weren't thirsty buy 2 boxes of juice. Want to see if I can do the same with you?" Thomas chuckled, a rare occurrence these days. "You're good. But what brings you here? A young woman like you could surely be doing something greater than selling juice in a supermarket." Mia shrugged, her smile unwavering. "Someone has to pay the bills, sir. Besides, I enjoy this job. I meet people, tell stories, and sometimes even make them laugh. That's enough for me." Thomas looked at her, his sharp yet aged eyes noticing something unique. Mia wasn't just talented, she had a knack for lighting up every place she was in. An idea sparked in his mind, a crazy but promising idea. "Would you like to try a different job?" Thomas asked, his serious tone making Mia pause in surprise. "If it doesn't involve selling fruit juice, I might consider it," Mia replied, half joking. "Not at all," Thomas said, his eyes sparkling. "I need someone to help my grandson, Julian. He's a genius at work, but has forgotten how to live. He needs someone to remind him that life is more than spreadsheets and reports." Mia raised an eyebrow and laughed. "That sounds more like a movie plot than a real job. Are you serious?" "Very serious," Thomas responded, his gaze unwavering. "And don't worry, you'll be well compensated." Mia hesitated. The idea was completely unfamiliar, yet intriguing. What had made a billionaire like Thomas Whitmore choose her? After a few moments of silence, she smiled. "All right. But you should know I'm not great at dealing with bossy bosses." Thomas laughed, feeling a glimmer of warmth for the first time in months. "You won't have to deal with any boss. I believe you'll do an excellent job." That day, Mia had no idea that her decision would take her on a life-changing journey, not just for Julian, but for herself as well. What do you think of Mia's decision? Would you take on a challenge like hers? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. The next morning, Mia stepped through the revolving doors of Whitmore Enterprises, a symbol of power and success, with gleaming glass walls reflecting the clear blue sky. Wearing her one and only blazer, she walked with confident strides, masking her nerves. This towering skyscraper was not only the workplace for hundreds of employees, but also the headquarters of the Whitmore family empire. Today, she wasn't just a new hire, she was a challenge, a turning point in Thomas Whitmore's plan. Mia stopped at the reception desk, where she was greeted with curious looks from the staff. After receiving quick instructions, she stepped into the elevator, feeling as though she was entering uncharted territory. The numbers on the panel climbed steadily, taking her to the top floor, the executive office of Julian Whitmore. When the elevator doors opened, Mia found herself in a marble-tiled hallway adorned with modern art pieces. A large wooden door led to the main office. She took a deep breath before knocking and stepping inside. Behind a polished mahogany desk, Julian Whitmore looked up. He was the picture of precision, a perfectly tailored suit, meticulously groomed hair, and eyes as sharp as lasers. If Thomas Whitmore symbolized success with experience and wisdom, Julian was the younger, ambitious version, lacking warmth and human connection. Julian glanced at Mia, his eyes scanning her like a misplaced package. "Who are you?" he asked, his tone cold and detached. Mia stepped forward, unfazed by his iciness. "Mia, I was hired by Thomas Whitmore. Starting today, I'll be working with you." Julian squinted, setting his pen down and leaning back in his chair. "You're working with me? My grandfather didn't mention anything about this." Mia smiled, a grin both confident and challenging. "Maybe he didn't feel the need to ask your permission. But don't worry, I'm not here to disrupt you. I'm just here to remind you that there's a life outside of work." Julian raised an eyebrow, irritation evident on his face. "I don't need a life coach," he said, his voice icy, "and I certainly don't need someone who used to sell fruit juice teaching me how to live." Mia crossed her arms, her eyes sparkling with sarcasm. "Fantastic, because I'm not a life coach. And frankly, I'm not interested in teaching you how to live. But your grandfather seems to think you need a little nudge to break out of your world of spreadsheets and reports." "You don't know anything about me," Julian replied, his tone dripping with arrogance. "Work is my life. I don't have time for meaningless things." Mia stepped closer, her gaze defiant. "Work can be everything, but if you're not living, what's the point of success? Let me guess. You had black coffee and a protein bar for breakfast, didn't you?" Julian didn't respond, just stared at her. Mia chuckled softly. "That's exactly why I'm here, Mr. Whitmore. Sometimes people need to have a proper lunch, not just to survive." Their first meeting ended in unspoken tension. Mia left the office with the sense that she had just entered a battle that wouldn't be easy, but instead of feeling daunted, she felt exhilarated. Julian was a thick, cold wall, but Mia knew that even the sturdiest walls could crack when hit in the right spot. As for Julian, he sat alone, unsettled by the presence of this woman. Mia was unlike anyone he had ever met. She didn't shy away from him, nor did she try to impress him. Instead, she was direct, humorous, and utterly indifferent to the aura of authority he used to shield himself. That left him both confused and intrigued. The first days of Mia's work at Whitmore Enterprises were a series of minor confrontations. Julian rejected all her attempts to soften his icy demeanor. He assigned her tedious tasks, hoping she would quit on her own. But Mia was not one to give up easily. Every time he tried to push her out of her comfort zone, she countered with unexpected intelligence and stubbornness. "Here's a stack of reports that need reviewing," Julian said one day, dropping a thick pile of papers on her desk. "Finish these before I leave." Mia glanced at the stack, then looked up with a mischievous smile. "Great. I'll do it, but only if you agree to have lunch with me today." "No time," Julian replied curtly, turning to leave. Mia quickly stood and stepped in front of him, blocking his path. "If you don't have time, I'll bring the food into the conference room. And trust me, I will." Julian stared at her, his eyes flickering with a mix of surprise and irritation. "You're insufferable." "And I'm very good at it," Mia replied with a bright smile, unfazed. Gradually, their confrontations evolved into more than just arguments. Mia began to notice cracks in Julian's hard exterior. He wasn't the emotionless machine he portrayed himself to be. He was simply a man who had forgotten how to enjoy life. And Julian, though he wouldn't admit it, found himself increasingly drawn to Mia's boldness and sincerity. They were like two opposing puzzle pieces, constantly challenging and testing each other. Yet amid the conflicts, a strange relationship started to take shape, a connection that forced them both to confront questions they had never dared to ask themselves. Change never happens overnight, and for Julian, it was a slow and arduous journey. But Mia, in her own way, made every step of that journey interesting and full of life. The changes began with the smallest gestures. Each day, Mia would walk into Julian's office with a radiant smile, sometimes carrying a cup of coffee that was entirely different from the bitter black brew he usually drank. "Try this," she said, placing the cup in front of him. "It's caramel. A little sweetness never hurt anyone." Julian initially refused. "I don't have time for this," he snapped. But Mia simply raised an eyebrow, pushing the cup closer. "Just try it, Mr. Whitmore. Life doesn't always have to be so serious." Under her challenging gaze, he reluctantly took a sip, and the displeasure on his face slowly melted away. He said nothing, but Mia knew she had won. One afternoon, Mia entered Julian's office carrying 2 lunchboxes from a small cafe she had discovered on her way to work. "Are we eating here, or do I have to drag you outside?" she asked, her smile beaming. Julian, engrossed in his computer screen, shook his head. "I'll eat later. There's too much work to do." Mia walked straight to his desk and set the lunchbox down. "No, you're eating now, and we're going to eat at the cafe across the street." "Mia, I can't just leave work and go out like that," he protested. She crossed her arms and tilted her head, giving him a challenging look. "If you think you can't spare 30 minutes for a break, you need a bigger change than I thought. Come with me, or I'll sit here and eat right in your office, and I'll chew very loudly." Julian looked up at her, his face a mix of irritation and curiosity. Finally, he sighed and stood up. "Fine, but if anyone calls, you're explaining it for me." Mia took him to a small, cozy cafe with wooden tables and soft lighting. For Julian, it felt like a completely different world from his high-pressure office. At first, he was uncomfortable, but as Mia began talking about the small things that made her happy, like finding the perfect crispy toast, he started to laugh. For the first time in years, he realized that life didn't always have to be meticulously planned. But not everything was easy. One evening, Mia suggested something she was certain Julian would refuse, joining a salsa dance class. "No," Julian said instantly, without a second thought. "I don't dance. It's ridiculous." Mia chuckled, unsurprised. "You don't want to try because you think you won't be good at it, right?" Julian frowned, feeling his pride pricked. "That's not it. I just don't see the point." "Really? Or are you just scared?" Mia teased, her eyes sparkling with playful mischief. I didn't think Julian Whitmore would ever admit he could fail at something. Her words hit a nerve. Clenching his jaw, Julian relented. "Fine, but don't blame me if you end up embarrassed." The class took place that evening in a small studio, the lively rhythm of salsa music filling the air. Mia pulled Julian to the center of the room, where couples were moving gracefully to the beat. He stood stiffly, glancing around as if he had been dragged into a foreign world. "Relax," Mia said, placing her hands on his shoulders. "This isn't a strategy meeting." Julian moved awkwardly, his steps out of sync with the music, and he stepped on Mia's toes more than once. But instead of being annoyed, she just giggled and clapped encouragingly. "Great job! Next time, try not to crush my feet." Julian looked at her, feeling both frustrated and amused. In that moment, he realized something he hadn't thought possible before. He was genuinely enjoying this imperfect experience. For the first time in years, he felt a lightness, as if the weight of perfection had been lifted. From small changes, like trying a different coffee, eating lunch outside the office, or even stumbling through a salsa dance, Mia slowly pulled Julian out of his comfort zone. She didn't try to change who he was. She simply showed him that life could be so much better if he learned to let go and enjoy it. As for Julian, he began to see Mia not just as a bold and witty young woman. She was someone who brought him truly precious moments, moments he hadn't realized he'd been missing for so many years. Over time, the relationship between Mia and Julian, initially defined by conflict, began to shift. Bit by bit, they started understanding each other through seemingly casual but profoundly meaningful conversations. One late afternoon, after a string of long meetings, Mia walked into Julian's office with 2 glasses of juice. "Here's a reward for surviving the day," she said, placing one in front of him. Julian looked up, his face showing signs of exhaustion, but also a hint of curiosity. "What's the catch this time?" Mia grinned playfully. "No catch, just apple juice. It's good for your mood." He took a sip without a word. but Mia noticed the faintest curl at the corner of his mouth. A smile, however small, was enough to tell her she was breaking through his walls. That evening, to Mia's surprise, Julian knocked on her door. He hesitated slightly as he stepped in. "I think we need a bit of a break after today. Would you like to go to a nearby bar?" Mia looked at him, surprised but agreeable. "I didn't take you for the bar type," she joked. "This is the first time in a very long time," he admitted, his voice carrying a rare note of sincerity that Mia couldn't ignore. "Are you still following this story? Comment coffee to let us know you're still with us." The small bar, tucked away in a quiet corner of the city, was neither too noisy nor overly lavish. Julian led Mia to a table near the window. The warm atmosphere, dim lighting, and soft music created a perfect setting for intimate conversations. Mia set her glass down after taking a sip of wine. "So have you really never had time to live an ordinary life?" she asked, her eyes intent on him. Julian leaned back in his chair, his gaze fixed on the whiskey glass in his hand. "I'm not sure I even understand what ordinary means," he said evenly. "Since I was a kid, I've always had to prove myself. My grandfather is a legend in the business world, and I didn't want to let him down. That turned into this pressure to be perfect, to succeed. I don't know how many things I've lost along the way." Mia smiled softly, though her eyes were filled with empathy. "I understand the pressure to prove yourself, but maybe you're putting too much expectation on yourself. Success doesn't always have to be measured by numbers or titles. Sometimes it's simply the satisfaction of appreciating what you already have." Julian looked at her as if her words had struck a deep chord within him. "And what about you, Mia? Why are you always so optimistic?" Mia smiled, though there was a hint of sadness in her expression. "I'm not always optimistic, but I grew up in a place where people didn't have much. The only thing we had was the belief that things would get better, and I learned that if I didn't find joy in the little things, life would never feel complete." The conversation flowed naturally, moving from childhood memories to unrealized dreams. Mia spoke about her parents, who had worked tirelessly to provide for their family. She described the poor neighborhood where she grew up, where laughter still rang out despite the hardships. Julian listened without interruption. He had never imagined that such a simple life could be so rich. In Mia, he saw an inner strength he had never encountered in anyone else. Then Mia shifted the topic, asking him about his biggest dream. "If you weren't working for the family business, what would you want to do most?" Julian looked at her, momentarily caught off guard. He had never thought about it. "I don't know," he admitted. "Maybe I've never allowed myself to think about it." Mia tilted her head, her eyes teasing, yet encouraging. "Well then, it's time you start thinking about it, Whitmore." The evening passed in laughter and stories that stretched late into the night. When they left the bar, the city lights sparkled on the empty streets. They walked slowly, neither wanting to disturb the pleasant silence between them. When their eyes accidentally met in a moment of quiet, something shifted. They were no longer employer and employee, no longer two opposing personalities, but two souls gradually finding harmony. Mia looked away, her cheeks flushing. "I should get going. Tomorrow is another long day." Julian nodded, but as she turned to leave, he called after her. "Mia!" She turned back, her wide eyes filled with anticipation. He didn't say anything, only gave her a soft smile. "Thank you for today." Mia smiled back, gentle but warm. "Don't thank me yet. We've got a lot to do tomorrow." As she walked away, Julian stood on the quiet street, watching her small figure disappear into the distance. A thought crossed his mind. Maybe for the first time, he didn't feel alone. The beautiful days between Mia and Julian seemed unbreakable. Their closeness gradually deepened, evolving from sharp debates to moments filled with emotion. But secrets always have a way of coming to light, and this time, it arrived like an unexpected storm. One afternoon, as Mia stepped into Julian's office, he was sitting in front of his computer screen, his expression tense. "Mia," his voice was colder than usual, "I need to talk to you." Mia paused, immediately sensing the tension in his gaze. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" she asked, trying to keep her tone gentle. Julian leaned back in his chair, his hands clasped in front of him. "I just spoke to my grandfather," he said slowly, as if trying to maintain control of his emotions. "He told me the real reason why you're here." Mia froze. Her heart pounded as the secret she had dreaded for so long was finally exposed. "Julian, let me explain." "So it's true," he cut her off, his tone sharp. "You were really hired to help me live a fuller life? To turn me into someone different?" Mia nodded, not attempting to deny it. "Yes, but it's more than that." Julian stood, his eyes filled with disappointment. "Then what is it? Do you expect me to believe that everything between us was just work? The moments we shared, the things you said to me, it was all part of some plan?" Mia stepped forward, her voice trembling but sincere. "No, Julian. At first, yes, I came here for the job. But everything changed when I got to know you. The things I said to you, the things I did, they were all real. My feelings for you were never part of any plan." He turned away, unwilling to meet her gaze. "I don't know what to believe anymore, Mia. You say it's real, but how do I know you're not just trying to salvage your position here?" Mia felt a wave of emotion surge within her. She had prepared for the day this secret would come to light, but she hadn't anticipated how much it would hurt. "Julian, I don't need to salvage anything," she said, her voice firmer now. "I'm here because I believe you deserve to live a better life, and I'm here because I want to be with you, not for anyone else." Julian remained silent for a long moment. Finally, he turned back to her, his eyes still heavy with pain. "I need time, Mia. I can't sort this all out right now." Mia nodded, fighting back tears. "I understand. I won't push you, but I hope that when you're ready, you'll remember that everything I've done has come from the heart." She turned and left the office, leaving Julian alone in the chaos of his emotions. The room, once always tidy and organized, now seemed stifling, as if mirroring his unsettled state of mind. That evening, Julian stood by his office window, looking down at the city lights twinkling below. His mind was a whirlwind of emotions, anger, hurt, and a tinge of regret. He thought back to the moments he had shared with Mia, how she had made him laugh, how she had helped him see life in an entirely new way. But now all of that seemed overshadowed by the feeling of betrayal. "Why did you do this, Grandpa?" he murmured, his voice echoing softly in the quiet space. Meanwhile, Mia returned to her apartment, feeling as though she had just lost something precious. She knew Julian needed time, but she also feared that this distance might break them apart. "Don't give up," she told herself, though her heart felt heavy. "He needs to understand that he isn't just part of a plan, he's everything." Though both were overwhelmed by their emotions, deep within them was a faint glimmer of hope, a fragile light that, if they could navigate this trial, might bring them back to each other, with honesty and trust no longer clouded by secrets. Time passed slowly for both Mia and Julian, but the weeks apart became a necessary pause for Julian to understand himself better. He realized that his initial anger was merely a shield for his fear of being hurt. Deep down, he knew that Mia had changed how he lived, how he loved, and how he understood the value of happiness. One late afternoon, Julian stood in front of Mia's small apartment door. In his hands was a bouquet of white lilies, her favorite flowers, and in his heart, a profound sense of remorse. He took a deep breath, then knocked. The door opened and Mia appeared, dressed in a simple sweater, her eyes wide with surprise at the sight of him. But before she could say anything, Julian stepped forward, handed her the bouquet, and looked her straight in the eyes. "Mia," his voice was warm, with a hint of nervousness. "I was wrong. I doubted you when all you ever did was help me become better. You didn't just teach me how to live. You made me believe that true love can change everything." Mia looked at him, her expression a mix of emotion and caution. "Julian," she said, her voice soft but resolute, "I didn't expect you to show up, but I also don't want us to drift apart. I just want to know that what I did for you truly mattered." Julian took her hand, feeling the warmth spread through his own trembling fingers. "You are the most meaningful thing in my life," he said. "I've spent my whole life chasing success, but only when you came into it did I realize that happiness isn't found in achievements. I want to make things right. I want you back in my life, not as someone helping me live better, but as the person I love." Mia remained silent for a moment, letting his words sink in. Then a gentle smile spread across her lips. "I believe you," she replied, her eyes shimmering with warmth. "But we need to do this together. No secrets, no expectations, just honesty." From that day forward, Mia and Julian began rebuilding their relationship, this time grounded in trust and equality. Mia encouraged Julian to find balance between work and life. He no longer worked through the night, but instead made time for new activities, Mia suggested. Learning to paint, attending concerts, and even trying his hand at cooking, a skill he had never imagined he needed. Together, they also started planning trips. Mia believed that the outside world would help Julian broaden his perspective and rediscover the joy of living. With each journey, from tranquil beaches to majestic mountains, they didn't just explore the world. They also discovered more about themselves. One breezy evening, Julian brought Mia to the rooftop of his penthouse. Before them stretched a breathtaking view of the city lights shimmering all the way to the horizon. As Mia stepped onto the rooftop, her eyes lit up, taking in the elegantly simple decor. Delicate string lights, a small dining table with 2 chairs, and a bouquet of white lilies at its center. "Julian, what is all this?" Mia asked, her voice filled with surprise and curiosity. Julian smiled, guiding her to the table and pouring 2 glasses of wine. "I wanted us to have a special evening," he said softly, "but before dinner, there's something I need to say." Mia frowned slightly, her heart beating faster, as Julian stepped back a little. To her astonishment, he slowly knelt on one knee and pulled a small box from his pocket. Under the glow of the city lights, the ring inside sparkled, reflecting every ounce of hope and love he felt for her. "Mia," he began, his voice thick with emotion, "you've changed the way I see the world. You've shown me that living isn't just about existing. It's about cherishing every moment, every breath. I don't know how I lived before meeting you, and now I can't imagine a life without you by my side. Will you walk this journey with me forever?" Mia brought her hand to her mouth, tears shimmering in her eyes. She looked into Julian's, seeing the sincerity and love that radiated from him. "Yes," she said, her voice trembling with happiness. Julian stood, gently sliding the ring onto her finger before pulling her into a tight embrace. Beneath the dazzling Dubai night sky, they stood together as if the whole world had melted away, leaving just the 2 of them, hand in hand, their hearts beating as one. Their love was now more than a chance encounter or the trials they had faced. It was a profound connection and a promise of a future they would build together. It wouldn't be perfect, but it would be real and deeply meaningful. And from that rooftop in a city of lights, they gazed forward, ready to face any challenge, knowing that together they could overcome anything. Mia and Julian's wedding took place in a quaint garden by a serene lake, where the gentle sunlight filtered through the trees and danced upon the water's surface. The ceremony was not the ostentatious affair of grand events, but it was filled with heartfelt emotion, witnessed by their closest loved ones. Thomas Whitmore sat in the front row, his kind face unable to hide his pride. He smiled as he watched his grandson, who had once confined himself to the cold structures of work, now standing before Mia with a radiant gaze. "He's truly changed," Thomas thought, "and it's all thanks to this woman." Mia walked down the aisle strewn with flower petals, her simple yet stunning white dress flowing gracefully. Her eyes found Julian's, and the smile on her lips said everything: trust, love, and an unshakable belief in the future they would share. When Mia reached him, Julian gently took her hand. "You look beautiful," he whispered, his voice trembling with emotion. "So do you," she replied, her eyes sparkling with joy. They exchanged vows that were simple yet profound, not adorned with flowery words but filled with heartfelt sincerity. "Mia," Julian began, his voice steady and deep, "I promise to always love, respect, and stand by you, not just in the good times, but also in the difficult ones. You've shown me that life is about more than numbers and plans. With you, I've found myself." Mia took a deep breath, holding back the wave of emotions as it came her turn. "Julian, you've made me believe that even the most closed-off hearts can learn to love. I promise to always be by your side, not just to share laughter, but also to be your shoulder to lean on. Together, we'll face everything." When the officiant declared them husband and wife, the small crowd erupted into warm applause. Mia and Julian shared their first kiss as a married couple, a kiss full of love and hope. After the wedding, Mia and Julian decided to begin their new life with an extended journey. They didn't choose luxurious destinations, but places that offered peace and opportunities to discover something new. Their first stop was a quaint seaside village in Italy, where winding cobblestone streets led to cozy cafes and unspoiled beaches. Mia was enchanted by the simplicity of life there, while Julian, for the first time, truly let go and enjoyed the moment. "You know," Mia said as they sat by the shore, watching the sunset, "I never thought I'd be here one day, with someone I love, feeling like everything in my life is exactly where it's meant to be." Julian tightened his grip on her hand. "I never thought I could step away from the office for so long either," he said with a soft laugh. "But now I understand that happiness isn't in reports or contracts. It's in moments like these." When they returned from their trip, Mia and Julian didn't go back to their old routines. Instead of letting work dominate their lives, they established new habits together. Julian began introducing more human-centered initiatives at Whitmore Enterprises, focusing on community development and sustainability projects. Mia, with her passionate spirit, became an advisor for the charitable programs funded by the company, helping those in need. They also made sure to spend quality time with each other. Every weekend, they cooked together, went on hikes, or simply read books side by side in peaceful companionship. Their life wasn't perfect, but it was always filled with love and mutual understanding. One evening, on the rooftop of their penthouse, Mia and Julian sat beneath a star-filled sky. Mia rested her head on Julian's shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. "Do you think we'll always be this happy?" Julian asked, his voice low and contemplative. Mia smiled. "Happiness isn't a destination, it's a journey," she replied. "As long as we're together, I believe we'll find joy in anything." They sat there hand in hand, savoring the tranquility of the night and looking ahead to a future they both knew they could face together, no matter what challenges lay ahead. The story of Mia and Julian wasn't just about love, it was about transformation, the courage to break old patterns, and the ability to find happiness in the simplest things. And with each passing day, they continued to write their story. A tale without an ending, only new chapters filled with meaning and hope. If you'd like to keep receiving meaningful stories that bring a smile to your face every day, hit subscribe now. And if there's anything you'd like us to share, don't hesitate to leave your thoughts in the comments below. Lila stepped through the large courthouse doors, the sound of her heels echoing in the expansive marble hall. The dim light from the antique chandeliers reflected off her neatly tailored outfit, accentuating the confident demeanor she tried to project. Yet inside, her heart was pounding, as if it might burst out of her chest. Lila was not someone who enjoyed confrontation, but today she had no other choice. The courtroom was packed with people, lawyers, reporters, and curious strangers. Lila quickly spotted them, the Prescott family. Sitting neatly on the opposing side was Ethan, her ex-husband, his hair as polished as it had always been. Beside him sat Victoria Prescott, the powerful woman Lila had once feared and dreaded facing. Victoria's icy demeanor was unchanged, her sharp gaze fixed on Lila with unrelenting intensity. Lila clutched her worn leather bag tightly, inside of which was a letter from Harrison Prescott, the only member of this family who had ever extended a helping hand when she was at her lowest. That letter, along with the memories of Harrison, was the strength that kept Lila standing tall today. She walked slowly toward the seats designated for the parties involved, feeling the weight of every stare following her. Her posture seemed composed, but the hands hidden under her light coat trembled. Lila took her seat, inhaling deeply to steady herself. It all began here. This wasn't a fight over wealth, but a moment for Lila to prove her worth to those who had once deemed her insignificant. They had cast her aside, treating her like a blemish on their prestigious family name. But now she was no longer the weak woman she had been. The gavel banged, pulling everyone back to reality. "The hearing on the last will and testament of Mr. Harrison Prescott is now in session," the judge's authoritative voice rang out. Lila glanced around the courtroom, her gaze finally landing on Ethan. He was looking back at her, his expression a mix of surprise and confusion. She curled her lips slightly, not in a smile but as a reminder to herself. Today wasn't about revenge but about justice and fulfilling Harrison's final wishes. The trial had begun, and Lila braced herself for everything that was about to unfold. Welcome to today's story. Let us know which city in the world you're watching from in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss any meaningful stories. Now let's continue with the story. Sitting in the courtroom, Lila couldn't stop the flood of memories rushing back, each piece of her past playing out in her mind like a slow-motion film. Lila closed her eyes, letting the distant memories wash over her like fragments of a once vivid dream now faded to shadows. She recalled the first time she met Ethan Prescott, a meeting that felt almost like destiny. At that time, she was just a small-town girl with a heart full of dreams, arriving in the big city with aspirations of becoming an artist. Despite the challenges she faced, her eyes remained bright, filled with hope for the future. And then Ethan appeared, like a ray of light breaking through a gloomy sky. He entered her life with his refined appearance, captivating smile, and a confidence that turned heads wherever he went. To Lila, he wasn't just a man. He was like a prince straight out of a fairy tale, someone she believed could only exist in distant dreams. Lila never thought that someone like Ethan could ever notice her, a simple girl with hands often stained from painting classes and clothes that never quite looked elegant enough. But Ethan not only noticed her, he was drawn to her sincerity, purity, and inner strength. He told her that her world made him feel at peace, a simplicity he had never found amid the grand parties or the perfectly masked people in his life. Their love blossomed quickly, overcoming all differences in status and background. When Ethan knelt to propose to her on a golden afternoon, Lila couldn't hold back tears of joy. She believed she had found the man of her dreams, the one who would love and protect her for the rest of her life. Her heart brimmed with hope and faith that this was the beginning of a beautiful journey. But married life turned out to be far from what Lila had envisioned. Upon entering the Prescott family, she immediately felt out of place in their world, a world where every glance and every word carried judgment, especially from Victoria Prescott, Ethan's mother, who consistently looked at Lila with cold disdain and delivered sharp, cutting remarks. Victoria made no effort to hide her contempt, viewing Lila as unworthy and a stain on the Prescott family name. Lila gradually realized that Ethan's love wasn't strong enough to shield her from the harsh prejudices of his family. In this glittering world, the sincerity that Ethan once admired in her was now regarded as a weakness. The beautiful dreams she had painted for her married life shattered into painful fragments, haunting reminders of a fleeting happiness she had thought would last forever. Lila believed that things would change when she found out she was pregnant. Her heart was filled with joy at the thought of sharing this news with Ethan, a child who would be a bridge, a hope for their future. But Ethan's reaction crushed her heart. "I'm pregnant," Lila said, her voice trembling yet filled with anticipation. Ethan looked at her, not with the joy she had hoped for, but with tension and discomfort etched across his face. "Are you sure?" he asked, his tone barely masking his unease. "Yes," she replied firmly, her hand instinctively protecting her belly. "We're going to be parents, Ethan. This is wonderful news." But he didn't think so. Ethan began avoiding her, spending more time at the office. Their conversations grew shorter and colder. Whenever Lila tried to talk about the baby, Ethan would either evade the topic or change the subject. The breaking point came when Victoria confronted her directly. "Lila, do you think this child is going to save your marriage?" Victoria said with biting disdain. "It will only ruin Ethan's career. You're dragging him down." Lila turned to Ethan, hoping he would stand up for her, but he just stood there silent, avoiding her gaze. "If you truly love Ethan," Victoria continued, "you'll leave. Don't be a burden to him and to this family." In that moment, Lila realized she would never have a place in the Prescott family. It wasn't just Victoria's blatant contempt or the scornful remarks from relatives. It was Ethan's painful silence, the man who should have been her anchor. His silence, when she desperately needed his support, was the most brutal answer of all. She had once believed that their love could overcome anything, but now all she could feel was a chilling emptiness. Ethan didn't just remain silent. He stepped back, leaving her alone to face the insults. Lila didn't just feel abandoned, she felt stripped of her dignity. The day she left, the sky was gray, as if reflecting her sorrow. Cold rain poured down as she walked through the grand gates of the Prescott estate, a place that had once been her dream home, but now stood as a symbol of humiliation. With a small suitcase in hand and her unborn child in her womb, Lila walked away without a single farewell from Ethan, without so much as a glance back from anyone in his family. They felt no regret, even viewing her as a burden they had finally shed. Lila felt as if every step she took was unbearably heavy, not only because of the suitcase in her hand, but also because her heart was weighed down by pain and betrayal. Standing in the rain, tears blended with the cold drops falling from the sky, Lila knew there was no going back. She had no choice but to move forward, to be stronger for the unborn child she carried. Yet even as her determination urged her onward, the emotional wounds inflicted by Ethan and the Prescott family remained etched deeply in her heart, a scar she knew would never fully fade. Now sitting in the courtroom, reality pulled Lila back. She lifted her head and looked toward Ethan. His face was still familiar, but the cold detachment in his eyes reflected the painful past like a mirror. Lila felt a storm of emotions within her, but she refused to let them take control. She sat upright, her gaze steady, as if to affirm that she was no longer the fragile girl she once was. The years of raising her son alone and enduring society's scorn had forged Lila into a strong woman. She no longer needed validation or pity from anyone. Today, Lila wasn't here for revenge. She was here for justice. She would prove to the Prescott family that, despite their belief that she was unworthy, she had overcome everything and stood strong before them. Resilient, determined, and, most importantly, independent of their approval. Harrison had seen her true worth, and today Lila would not let him down. The first days after leaving the Prescott family were the hardest of Lila's life. With no place to turn, no one to rely on, she had to find a way to survive. Not just for herself, but for the child growing inside her. Lila started working at a small diner in a poor neighborhood. The waitressing shifts stretched from early morning until late at night, and even with meager wages, she struggled to save every penny. Her body ached with exhaustion, but each night as she placed her hand on her growing belly, imagining the day her son would be born, she reminded herself, "I can't give up. For him." When Oliver was born, life became even more demanding. Balancing childcare with earning a living was an endless battle. Between long shifts and sleepless nights caring for her baby, Lila hardly had time to breathe. The artistic dreams she had once cherished were set aside. Instead, she began seeking practical ways to improve their lives. During the day, Lila worked at the diner. At night, she attended business classes at an adult education center. There were moments when exhaustion overwhelmed her, and she felt like collapsing. But the thought of building a better future for Oliver was the beacon that kept her going. She made a promise to herself. No matter what happened, she would not give up. Oliver needed her more than ever, and she had to be strong, had to rise above it all. Oliver was the single light in those dark years. Every time she saw his innocent smile, Lila felt that all her struggles were worth it. Despite their financial hardship, she always tried to create joyful and memorable moments for the two of them. Taking Oliver to the park, even for a short walk, was their greatest joy. Lila would often tell him fairy tales, though deep inside she knew her own fairy tale had long since shattered. "You'll grow up to be strong, I promise," Lila whispered to Oliver one night as he drifted to sleep in her arms. Those words weren't just a promise to her son. They were a reminder to herself that she had to stay strong, to protect Oliver and give him a better future. But Lila couldn't always maintain her optimism. On long nights after Oliver had fallen asleep, she often sat alone in their cramped apartment, her mind overwhelmed by unanswered questions. Did Ethan ever think of her? Did the Prescott family regret what they had done? Lila knew asking these questions wouldn't change anything, but the pain remained. Memories of betrayal, Ethan's cold eyes, and Victoria's biting words cut into her heart like knives whenever she reflected on the past. One day, while clearing tables at the diner, Lila overheard two customers talking. One of them mentioned the Prescott family, their wealth, power, and lavish parties. Lila clenched the dish towel in her hand, a lump rising in her throat. She stepped into the kitchen, leaning against a corner wall, breathing heavily as tears threatened to spill. But then she wiped her eyes, reminding herself that she was no longer the woman she used to be. She didn't need to live in their shadow anymore. Gradually, Lila's efforts began to pay off. She graduated from her business program with high honors, opening doors to new opportunities. She started a daytime office job while continuing her waitressing shifts in the evening to make ends meet. Each small step forward, each modest achievement, became a source of motivation for Lila to keep going. Although life remained challenging, she knew she was moving forward, little by little. Oliver, with his natural intelligence and zest for life, became Lila's guiding light. Watching him grow stronger and more joyful each day, she knew that all her hard work was worth it. Oliver wasn't just her pride. He was living proof of her strength, a testament to how she had overcome the impossible to build a new life. Lila didn't forget the past, but she learned not to let it define her. And although the painful memories lingered, they only made her more determined to ensure that Oliver would never endure what she had. Lila's life had been a series of battles against hardship, until one day everything changed when Harrison Prescott, Ethan's grandfather, appeared, bringing with him apologies and an opportunity Lila had never dared to dream of. That afternoon seemed no different from any other at the small diner where Lila worked. She had just finished clearing a table when a man walked in. He wore a long coat, exuding an air of elegance without ostentation. What stood out most was his gaze, a mixture of sternness and calm. "Hello, Miss Lila Bennett," he asked gently as he approached her. Lila froze, startled to hear her name from a stranger's lips. But before she could ask, he introduced himself. "I'm Harrison Prescott, Ethan's grandfather." The words hit her like a sudden blow. Lila felt her whole body stiffen. She didn't know how to react, surprised, angry, or even hurt. "I know my presence is unexpected and perhaps unwelcome," he said, "but I want to tell you that I'm sorry." Lila stood motionless, the dish towel still in her hand, unable to speak. "I'm sorry for how my family treated you," Harrison continued, his tone sincere. "You didn't deserve that, and I feel responsible for what happened." Lila still said nothing, but her gaze softened, the initial shock giving way to a curious wariness. Harrison sat down, offering a gentle smile. "I've been watching you, Lila. The way you've raised Oliver with such strength, the way you've worked hard and pursued your education, it's remarkable. I believe you have far more potential than my family ever realized." When Harrison finished speaking, Lila remained silent, her emotions swirling in a chaotic mix. At first, she felt surprised and guarded. He was a part of the Prescott family, the name that symbolized some of the deepest wounds in her life. His sudden appearance left her unsure of what to expect. Another judgment, or perhaps pity. But then every word he said seemed to reach deep into her heart, stirring old memories and the pain she thought she had buried long ago. When Harrison apologized, his voice warm and sincere, Lila couldn't hide her unease. Her hands clasped tightly together, her heart clenched as his words reminded her of the injustices she had endured. As he went on to praise her resilience and efforts, a strange mix of emotions arose, gratitude mingled with doubt. Were his words genuine? Or was this merely a belated attempt at compensation she no longer needed? Lila's gaze shifted between wariness and a faint flicker of hope. Harrison's final words about seeing great potential in her brought a sting to her eyes. For the first time in years, someone didn't just see her, but acknowledged all she had overcome. She felt a faint light breaking through the fog of her pain, a reminder that she deserved respect and love. Tears threatened to fall, but she held them back, trying to remain composed. Her heart felt heavy, not just from the old wounds resurfacing, but also from a fragile seed of hope being planted. For the first time in years, she felt as if she wasn't entirely alone on this journey. From that day forward, Harrison began quietly helping Lila. He didn't impose or interfere deeply in her life, but instead offered gentle advice and support when needed. "A strong-willed person like you needs access to better opportunities," he said during a meeting at a cafe near her home. "Let me help you return to school and develop your skills. You've done incredibly well so far, but I believe you can achieve even more." At first, Lila hesitated, She had grown used to handling everything on her own and was reluctant to accept help, especially from a member of the Prescott family. But Harrison's sincerity eventually won her over. "I'm not doing this to atone for my family's mistakes," Harrison said, his gaze firm. "I'm doing this because I believe in you, and I believe that with a little support, you can accomplish great things." Thanks to Harrison's assistance, Lila returned to school, resuming her studies in business with unwavering determination. He didn't just help her financially, but also introduced her to new job opportunities where her talent and perseverance were recognized. Over time, the relationship between Lila and Harrison grew increasingly special. He wasn't just a mentor, but also began to feel like the father figure she had never had. Harrison never judged her or imposed unreasonable expectations, but always listened and supported her with genuine care. Once, when Lila struggled to balance work and school, she called Harrison for advice. "I'm scared I can't do it, Mr. Harrison," she said, her voice breaking. "I want to give it all up and just focus on Oliver. I don't want to fail." Harrison paused for a moment before replying, his voice calm and steady. "Lila, the challenges you're facing are proof of your growth. No one ever said this journey would be easy, but remember, you're not alone. And more importantly, Oliver is watching you every day. You're teaching him that anything can be overcome as long as you don't give up." Harrison's words didn't just ease Lila's worries, they reignited her strength to keep moving forward. Lila gradually realized that Harrison wasn't only helping her build a career, but also helping her heal the deep wounds from her past. He never shied away when she spoke about the pain of being rejected by the Prescott family, always listening with patience and understanding. "Mr. Harrison, I still don't understand," Lila said one day, her eyes filled with sadness. "Why do you believe in me when your entire family didn't?" Harrison smiled and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Because they see your past and your status. But I see the future you can build. Not everyone has the strength you possess, Lila. Use it to prove them wrong." With Harrison's quiet yet impactful support, Lila not only completed her studies but also began building a career in business. Harrison didn't just provide her with opportunities, he helped her regain faith in herself, a confidence she thought she had lost forever. Lila no longer lived just to survive. She began living for a brighter future, not only for herself, but also for Oliver. And she knew that every step she took carried the imprint of Harrison, the man who believed in her when no one else did. A few months later, when Lila received news of Harrison's passing, it felt as though time had stopped. The phone in her hand felt unbearably heavy, and each word from the caller rang clearly in her ears, but failed to fully sink into her mind. She sat motionless on the chair, her eyes fixed on an empty point in space. An inexplicable sorrow filled her heart, a deep sense of loss she hadn't anticipated. Harrison wasn't just the only member of the Prescott family who truly saw her worth. He was the one who extended a helping hand during her darkest times. His death severed a fragile yet meaningful connection between her and the values he represented: kindness, integrity, and faith in goodness. She recalled every word he had spoken, every brief yet profound conversation they had shared. In her mind, Harrison's image appeared vividly, a man with warm eyes and a gentle smile who gave her the confidence to believe she could succeed, that she deserved better. Yet guilt crept into her thoughts. "I didn't visit him more often," she thought, her hands clenched tightly. "I didn't tell him how much his actions changed my life." Lila broke into tears, but they weren't just tears of grief. They carried gratitude, regret, and an unshakable determination. She silently vowed not to let his legacy fade away and to continue living and working by the values he had trusted and instilled in her. As she gazed out the window, where the faint sunlight of the late afternoon pierced through the gray skies, Lila whispered, "Thank you, Mr. Harrison. I won't let you down." A few days later, Lila received a handwritten letter from Harrison addressed to her. If you followed the story this far, type pizza in the comments section. It helps us know you're a truly special viewer. Don't hesitate. We're always watching and love your interactions. And today in court, Lila stepped into the courtroom on a chilly morning, feeling the tense atmosphere permeating the room. It had been many years since she last saw the Prescott family, but the memories of their contempt and rejection toward her remained vivid. She saw Victoria Prescott, still as haughty as ever, sitting alongside Ethan and other members of the family at the opposing table. Victoria's gaze was icy when she noticed Lila, as though her very presence was an insult. Ethan, seated next to his mother, appeared stunned to recognize Lila. But Lila didn't waver. She walked to her place, gripping tightly the letter from Harrison Prescott, the only person in this family who had ever truly recognized her worth. Harrison's lawyer, Mr. Alexander, stood up and began to read the will. His calm voice resonated in the silent room. According to the wishes of Mr. Harrison Prescott, his personal assets shall be distributed as follows. Curious eyes from the Prescott family turned toward Mr. Alexander. As he continued, his tone grew firm. The majority of the estate, including principal ownership of Prescott Enterprises, shall be transferred to Lela Bennett, the individual Harrison Prescott trusted most to carry out his vision. The room erupted. Victoria shot to her feet, her voice seething with rage. This is absurd. How could he leave everything to her? Who does she think she is? The judge banged the gavel, signaling for order. Mrs. Prescott, if you do not remain silent, I will have you removed from the courtroom. Ethan sat frozen, his eyes locked on Lila. He seemed unable to believe what he had just heard. What did you do to achieve this? Victoria hissed, turning toward Lila with disdain in her voice. How did you deceive my father? Lila calmly stood, her gaze steady as she met Victoria's glare. I didn't deceive anyone. Harrison trusted me because he saw what your family failed to notice, the true value of a person. Ethan spoke up, his voice low but clear. Lila, is this true? Did Grandpa choose you? Lila nodded. Yes, Harrison helped me through the hardest times of my life. He believed I could carry forward the legacy he left behind. Victoria let out a mocking laugh. Ridiculous. A girl who was cast out of our family, running Prescott Enterprises? That will never happen. Lila took a deep breath, keeping her voice calm but resolute. I'm not here to argue with you, Mrs. Victoria. I'm here to fulfill Harrison's wishes. If you wish to dispute this, contact the judge and Harrison's attorney. These are the letters, photographs, and documents prepared by Harrison's lawyer. Each piece of evidence has been verified by third parties and is indisputable. Harrison saw the value in me that none of you ever cared to notice. I didn't come here for revenge or to compete. I came to continue the work he believed in, Lila said, her voice filled with confidence. The judge reviewed the documents and declared, all evidence has been authenticated. This will is entirely valid. Victoria sank into her chair, her face pale. The other members of the Prescott family sat speechless, except for Ethan. If you enjoyed this story, check out more of our captivating content through the links at the end or in the description. Let's explore more together. When the court recessed, Ethan approached Lila hesitantly. Lila, he said softly, his voice trembling slightly. I don't know where to start, but I want to apologize. I was wrong to let you go, to abandon you, to neglect you, and to not stand by your side. Lila looked at him, a familiar pain rising in her chest. Do you think an apology can erase everything, Ethan? I raised Oliver alone, overcame everything by myself. Where were you when I needed you the most? Ethan lowered his head, unable to meet her gaze. I know, and I'll live with this regret for the rest of my life. But if it's possible, I want to see Oliver. I want to be a father to him, even though I don't deserve it. Lila paused for a moment, then replied, I can't make that decision right now. If you truly want to be Oliver's father, prove it with your actions toward him, not just words. Ethan nodded, his eyes filled with deep remorse. I will prove it, Lila, I promise. When the trial concluded, Lila was officially recognized as the primary heir of Harrison Prescott. The Prescott family, though visibly displeased, could do nothing to change the outcome. Lila stepped out of the courtroom, her heart a swirl of emotions. She didn't feel victorious, nor did she feel any need to gloat over the Prescott family. Instead, she felt the weight of an enormous responsibility, fulfilling Harrison's vision and building a better future for Oliver. The words of Harrison's letter echoed in her mind. I write this letter not just to express my admiration, but to convey something important. The future of the Prescott family, as well as the Prescott Corporation, now lies in your hands. I know this is no small responsibility, but I believe you are the only one capable of bringing about the positive change I have always dreamed of. Always remember, the true value of the Prescott Corporation does not lie in numbers or profits, but in how we can use our power to do good. I hope you will lead this company with that vision: transparency, fairness, and humanity. I know you may feel uncertain or anxious about the road ahead, but always trust yourself, because you have proven that nothing is impossible. Now, Lila understood that she was no longer just living for herself or for Oliver, but to continue and realize the vision Harrison had entrusted to her. Looking up at the clear blue sky, Lila took a deep breath. She had traveled a long, arduous road to get here, and now she would keep moving forward, stronger than ever. Lila stepped into the headquarters of the Prescott Corporation, a towering skyscraper in the heart of the city. Bathed in the bright morning light, everything about the building exuded power and opulence, a world that had once excluded her, but one she now re-entered as a leader. The first days in her new role were anything but easy. Lila had to face skepticism from the senior leadership team, individuals accustomed to the old ways of running the company, as well as the wary glances of employees who only knew her as the unexpected heir. One morning during a management meeting, a long-serving director spoke up, his tone laced with doubt. "Ms. Bennett, I'm not sure if you have the experience to run a corporation of this magnitude. This isn't something you can learn overnight." Lila smiled, her demeanor calm as she responded, "You're absolutely right. I don't have experience managing a large corporation, but I do have experience overcoming adversity, managing personal finances on a shoestring budget, and building a life from nothing. I learned quickly, and I believe that with the support of everyone here, we can take Prescott Corporation to new heights." Her words, delivered with confidence and clarity, resonated in the room. The skepticism began to wane, replaced by the realization that Lila wasn't just there to take a seat of power. She was there to lead with purpose and vision. She continued presenting her new vision for the company, emphasizing transparency, social responsibility, and prioritizing human values, principles that Harrison had always believed in. "I am not here to change everything just because I have the authority. I am here to work alongside you to ensure that Harrison Prescott's legacy is upheld with the values he instilled in us," she said. Gradually, Lila's confidence and integrity won everyone over. They began to realize that she wasn't there just to hold a position, but genuinely had a plan to reform and grow the company. The first shareholders' meeting was a significant test for Lila. The Prescott Corporation was facing criticism for its lack of transparency and environmental issues. Lila knew this was her opportunity to prove her new vision. During the meeting, a major shareholder stood up, his tone challenging. "Ms. Bennett, what you're proposing, greater transparency and reducing profits to invest in social responsibility, will harm our stock value. Do you really think we'll agree to this?" Lila rose, her confident gaze sweeping across the room. "I understand your concerns, but let's look at the long term. A company doesn't survive solely on profit figures, but on the trust of its customers, partners, and the community. If we don't change, we'll be left behind. However, if we innovate, if we become a model of transparency and social responsibility, we won't just protect but enhance our brand value. And when that happens, our stock value will not only stabilize but grow sustainably." She detailed her plan, from investing in environmentally friendly projects and improving employee working conditions to making financial reports more transparent. Finally, the meeting ended with a vote. The results showed that the majority of shareholders supported Lila's plan. As applause filled the room, Lila felt a deep sense of pride, not just because she had overcome the challenge, but because she had proven that Harrison had chosen the right person. Despite her professional success, Lila's personal life still had its complications. Ethan, now filled with regret, repeatedly sought opportunities to meet and talk with her. One evening after finishing work, Lila stepped out of the building to find Ethan waiting for her in the parking lot. He approached her, his voice low but sincere. "Lila, I know you don't want to see me, but I just want to say I'm grateful that you've given me this chance." Lila stopped, looking him straight in the eye. "Ethan, I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for Oliver. You want to be his father? Prove it to him. Don't just say it without taking action. Ethan nodded. I understand, and I'll do everything I can to make up for my mistakes. Although Lila no longer had feelings for Ethan, she didn't want to deny Oliver the opportunity to know his biological father, but she set a clear condition. Ethan had to be patient and genuinely change. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our exciting stories. We have lots of great content coming soon, and you'll be the first to know. A few weeks later, Ethan began to slowly re-enter Oliver's life. He visited the boy on weekends, played soccer with him, and helped Oliver with his homework. From a distance, Lila observed, feeling a slight sense of relief seeing that Ethan was genuinely making an effort. But she remained cautious, always putting her son's best interests first. Lila knew that the road ahead would still hold many challenges, but she no longer felt alone. She had carved out a place for herself in a world that had once rejected her, and she had done it not to prove anything to the Prescott family, but to affirm her own worth. With a clear vision and unwavering determination, Lila began implementing her first reform projects at Prescott Corporation. Her initiatives not only brought financial benefits, but also reshaped the company's image, transforming it into an organization that prioritized social responsibility over mere profit. Standing on the rooftop balcony of the building, gazing out at the city below, Lila smiled. She had come a long way to reach this point, and now she knew she wasn't just building a better future for Oliver, but also creating a legacy that Harrison Prescott would be proud of. Despite holding power and wealth through Prescott Corporation, Lila chose to lead a simple life. She decided to live in a small house in the suburbs, with a yard where Oliver could play freely and fresh air to help him grow strong and healthy. Every morning, Lila prepared breakfast for her son before taking him to school. Each evening, she sat with Oliver, listening to his stories about his day at school, from soccer matches to riddles he had solved. Mom, I helped Jake with math today, Oliver said one evening, his eyes sparkling with pride. You're amazing, Oliver, Lila replied, smiling as she ruffled his hair. But remember, we help others not just because we're good at something, but because it's the right thing to do. Lila wasn't just teaching Oliver academic lessons. She was instilling in him values of kindness and honesty. The lessons Harrison had once passed down to her now became her guiding principles in raising her son. Although she received support from Prescott Corporation, Lila never let Oliver get swept up in the glamour of that world. She wanted her son to understand that a person's worth wasn't measured by wealth or status, but by how they treated others. Lila knew the wounds of the past would always be a part of her, but they no longer defined her. Instead of letting the pain overshadow her present, she learned to turn it into motivation to move forward. The memories of the day she left the Prescott family, the tears and the heartache, were now just distant echoes. She opened the box containing Harrison's letters, and one of them read, Lila, you are a testament to the values I hold dear: integrity, resilience, and a compassionate heart. Always believe in yourself, because you are much stronger than you think. Those words became Lila's greatest source of encouragement during difficult days. They reminded her that she wasn't just living for herself, but also carrying forward Harrison's legacy, a legacy that went beyond wealth. Lila continued to lead Prescott Corporation, spearheading new initiatives such as scholarship programs for underprivileged children and environmental protection projects. She became a role model not only for Oliver, but also for hundreds of employees within the company. Lila never forgot Harrison, the man who had believed in her when no one else did. She passed on his values to Oliver, teaching him that no matter the circumstances, integrity, resilience, and compassion were the most important qualities to uphold. With Oliver by her side, Lila wasn't just surviving, she was truly living with purpose. She was no longer the woman broken by her past, but a strong mother, a dedicated leader, and, above all, someone who never gave up on what she believed in. We'll always move forward, Oliver, she whispered in the quiet of the night, her eyes full of hope, because the future is ours to create. Thank you for following the story to the end. Share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to rate the story from 0 to 10. We're excited to read your opinions. Also, don't forget to like, share this story with your friends, and subscribe to our